The 1980s was a magical time for me because a good portion of my grade school and middle school years took place during that time. As you know, if you've watched any, or in some cases all of my videos, you've always heard me say when I mention 1976, then you probably can guess why it is a good year for me. So as I get older and hopefully wiser, although my ex-wife would say otherwise, I just wanted to look back at my childhood and celebrate some of the things that made me remember the good times. Not that the 90s or beyond weren't good. Here are some things that I loved during that time. I'm sure everything is up for debate and you'll add other items to this, but these are the things that made my childhood memorable during the 1980s. As a kid, some of my most treasured memories of the 1980s was the candies and the sweets. I had a sugar tooth. That probably explains why I had so many fillings during that time. I am sure you, the viewer, will give me a laundry list of the candies and sweets that I missed, but these are the ones that I actually can say that I ate during that time. But back in the 1980s, my parents didn't let me partake in a ton of candy. Hell, I chewed sugarless gum and wasn't even allowed to chew sugar gum around them. So you can see where I'm coming from. Things you may have remembered are Chewels was one of the first sugared kind of gums that I had, of course with the little flavor burst, and then we had Trident, and my mom kept a healthy supply of that in her purse. And then of course, when I was a little bit older, I would get Bubblicious. And who could forget Big League Chew? Best kind of gum. Kind of like tobacco. It was always our goal as a kid to stuff as much as we could in our mouth. Kind of like those baseball players back in the day. And who could forget Fun Dip, the powdery goodness that you dip that sour-tasting white dipstick in? My question was, do you eat the stick or do you throw it away? Another candy that I tried once and have not to this day ever gone back to was the candy buttons on a piece of paper. Do you eat it off the paper? Rip them off and pop them into your mouth? Did you have that paper stick to the candy while eating the candy? What was the point of it? I remember eating Nerds when they first came out in 1984. I found just popping a whole bunch of them into my mouth and waiting for them to slowly dissolve. It was almost like rock candy. My favorite flavor was grape, and the original versions, they had the big boxes that had 2 compartments which were separating the flavors. And I remember popping the tearaway top off it to get to the flavors, or each flavor. Halloween was also is when they introduced the smaller versions, which were in those tiny little boxes. Starbursts were like a combination of gum and taffy candy. I remember the waxy-like feeling it had in my mouth when I ate these things. I remember when it would stick to my teeth and I felt like it was gonna take a filling out. Cherry was my favorite flavor. Valentine's Day wasn't the same if it weren't for those conversation candy hearts. I remember getting my first box of these in 1985. Still have a soft place in my heart when I get one of these boxes in class. Who remembers when you had to get everyone in the class those silly Valentine's Day cards? Honestly, I saw the commercials during the 1980s for this candy, but I honestly didn't have one until I was in my 20s. They are good though. Introduced in 1980, these candies were made famous when it was featured in the movie E.T. Good stuff though. Another favorite candy of mine is the Junior Mint. It is one of my all-time favorite chocolate candies. Who could forget the See's Candy Butterscotch Lollipop? My mom would also get one for me when we went to the store, as well as those peppermint sticks in different flavors. The See's Candy Chocolate Butter Egg was also a special treat around Easter time for me, which also goes hand in hand with the Cadbury Cream Egg, although I have to say that the eggs have gotten a lot smaller since I was a kid. Skittles was introduced in the US in 1982. I love the grape ones. Yellow, not so much. Bubble tape was introduced in 1988. The super sugary, super sweet bubblegum was a big hit with my friends and other kids. This is due in a large part to its unique packaging and promises of 6 feet of bubble fun. Airhead's candy is a taffy-like chewy fruity taste of pure awesomeness. This candy came out in 1985. The iconic Twix candy bar contains 2 bars of a buttery cookie center that is topped with creamy caramel, which was completely smothered in rich milk chocolate. I remember the commercials, and this candy became pretty popular during the 1980s. And finally, the candy that I would actually eat by color, even though it didn't matter what color it was, the taste was the same, M&Ms. I would actually eat the colors one by one and then save the green ones for last. Don't ask me why. So what candies did you eat in the 1980s? Leave a comment below. Thanks. So what do you remember about this place? Leave a comment or a suggestion for a future video below. And if you haven't already, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Bringing back memories from the good old days. That's super cool, man.